Hey, 4C divers! This is our 4C Facebook Live. Thank you for tuning in. It is October 15th, 2020, and we wanted to make sure that you guys are doing good, staying safe here in South Florida. And if you are listening in, let us know where you're listening in from. Tell us hello in the comments section. Let us know where you're listening from, if you're here in South Florida or in the state of Florida or in the U.S. or outside of the U.S. We want to know who is listening. Also, during the presentation, if you're having a good time and you're really enjoying this, the topic, give us a thumbs up, give us a smiley face, or the heart emoji. All right, guys. So it is
no turd emojis.
Yeah. All right. Well, mute you, John. All right. So, guys, it is Tech Month. October is Tech Month at 4C.
Oh, God.
And what we've done is we put together some good Facebook Live presentations about technical diving. And we also have a really cool page on our website, which I'll share in the comments section. You guys can go check that out. And basically what we're doing is highlighting technical diving. So if you're a recreational diver and you've always thought about getting into technical, or maybe you already have some of those certifications and you want to learn more about technical diving, you're in the right place. This Facebook Live is going to be a really cool event because we have some great topics and great speakers tonight. Before we let them take over, if you did not register online for this event, you're going to want to by 7 p.m. And you're going to go to the 4C Facebook page, go to our website, and you're going to go over to the event tab and scroll down, find this event, and register on the Eventbrite. The reason why you want to do that is it'll give me your name and your email address. I'm going to put you in a live drawing. And at the end of this, I'm going to raffle off on a live drawing a $50 gift card to 4C. Woohoo! So you can buy some technical gear. So make sure you do that by 7 p.m. That's when the registration closes. All right. So again, give us a hello if you're listening. Let us know where you're listening in from. We've got people dialing in, guys. We've got people from Jupiter, Coral Springs, Kansas. So, all right. Well, you guys didn't tune in to hear from me. You guys came here to listen to two awesome technical diving instructors. They're here locally in South Florida. We have Mr. John Chatterton. Hey, John.
Hi, guys.
And we have Alec Hutchinson. Hi, Alec.
Hey, guys.
All right.
Alec, could you please explain to them how the $50 gift card will not go very far?
Hey, it's something, right? Yay! All right. So, guys, again, if you're enjoying this Facebook Live, make sure to comment and ask any questions you might have, and I will make sure that they answer those questions for you. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and start this off. Hey, John, can you give us a brief background of your diving history? And then, Alec, will you do the same so everyone knows where you started and where you are now with your diving?
I went to commercial dive school. I became a commercial diver. I was working in and around New York City, and as a result, local diving, sport diving for me was New Jersey, New York shipwrecks, and I started diving shipwrecks. Really, working as a commercial diver, you would go from job to job, and in between jobs, you weren't working. So I started wreck diving as a young commercial diver. I was like, this will really help me hone my job skills. And, I started looking at recreational diving, sport diving, as a way to not just stay in diving, but also as a way to make a dollar. When I was the first dive job, big commercial union dive job I went on, the foreman was a guy by the name of Tony Rodriguez, and he said, diving is not a full-time job. It's a part-time job. He says, you got to get a side gig. and this is very important, it can't be tile work, because I do tile work. So I was like, okay. So I became a scuba instructor. I was doing a lot of deep air diving before the term technical diving was developed. And I'm still having fun doing it. And right now, I'm an active instructor with TDI, SDI, and I'm living in Boca Raton, diving out of Hillsborough Inlet mostly.
I'm Alec Hutchinson. I've been diving since I was about 14 years old. I started in 1998, diving off my uncle's research boat in Bermuda, and my very first dive ever was on a shipwreck that we found that day. So I've been kind of hooked ever since. That was 22 years ago, and now I've been diving all over the world, in the Eastern Pacific to Bikini Atoll, the Andrea Doria. I'm a TDI SDI advanced trimix instructor trainer and rebreather instructor. And John and I have been teaching classes together for what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
6 years?
And you know, you're kind of modest. You don't mention the fact that your uncle that taught you to dive was Teddy Tucker, who is the most famous diver, salvage treasure diver in all the Caribbean. And, so you've actually got it in your blood, Alec.
All right. So guys, since you're talking about how you're instructors, somebody who is a recreational diver and they want to get into technical diving, you know, what are those steps? What is it that they need for the recreational certification level to be able to jump to a tech level? And then what are the different steps that they have going there?
Why don't you handle that, Alec?
You know, it's technical diving is still an aspect of recreational diving. You know, we're all doing this for fun. So separating it out into, you know, technical and recreational. You know, what do we call technical diving? Anything with a soft overhead or hard overhead environment that, like being inside of a wreck or inside of a cave or requiring mandatory decompression stops. So, you know, when we look at it, the intro class would be something like an intro to tech class offered through TDI that kind of builds your fundamental skills and starts getting you thinking like a technical diver. And that's actually something that's useful to people that don't have any interest in going to 300 feet or even 150 feet. It's just going to make you a more competent and confident diver at any depth. So, you know, anytime that you can focus on building those fundamental skills, you know, you're going to make yourself a better diver that's safer and has more fun. Yeah, and then after intro to tech, John, you know,
well, you know, the biggest transition, you know, the classes are great. You know, they're the framework for you to make that kind of transition. All the stuff we do in technical training is you don't really learn any like brand new skills. It's not like there's something that like you know didn't exist in your recreational diving life, but everything has a greater importance. Everything there's a greater responsibility. And so there's a huge difference in mindset and your approach. Recreational divers basically dive off of their submersible pressure gauge, their gas pressure. You know, obviously technical divers have to deal with that too. But the thing is that technical divers, the importance of the SPG is, you know, minimal. Really, it's about the dive plan. So you know, everything like dive planning for a recreational diver is relatively simple. Dive planning for a technical diver is far more complex. The greater the more technical that the dives become, but they you know, that's part of the fun. You know, I mean, you're not just having fun diving when you're out diving. You're having fun diving when you're putting plan together, when you're working on your gear, reading, studying. Diving, especially technical diving, keeps changing, and the technology is often far ahead of where conventional training is.
Yeah, and building on that, when I was already a dive professional when I got into technical diving, and I remember, it was the additional planning, the additional work that went into it. It was part of the fun. It's challenging yourself, especially once you've already become an accomplished diver. As we've got tons of people in South Florida. I know, all the 4C customers that come into the shop all the time that are diving every weekend. They're very accomplished divers. They're very comfortable in the water, very competent, and technical diving gives you kind of something else to work towards. It helps you feel like you're still growing, even though you've been diving forever. So it's
well, and in all honesty, if you look at the way we're training divers today, it's even different than it was a year ago.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the training changes, the landscape changes, and technical divers, all of us are part of that that dynamic, that evolution, and that part is really, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I see a lot of people using technical gear and doing shallower dives. I mean, you don't have to go to the deep and dark to, be considered a technical diver. And so, you see plenty of people who maybe for back reasons, they like using side mounts. People who do photography are using rebreathers now to be able to get closer to the animals. Technical is going towards. So question for you guys is, so if you are planning technical dives, obviously you have to have certain gear, but the actual planning of the dives, like how do you guys go about that? Because I know, Todd, as a recreational diver, it's like, okay, set your dive computer, look at the dive tables and get in and just don't go into deco. But there's a little bit more that goes into that for you guys. So if you could explain a little bit more about planning a dive.
Go, Alec.
Well, it's, as a recreational diver, like Nicole said, you're more worried about what your SPG says and making sure you don't go into deco on your computer or exceed what your tables told you could do for the max depth you're going to. For us, it's more complex. We are trying to manage different types of stressors and manage different variables to extend the amount of time we can spend on the bottom phase of the dive, without giving ourselves higher, more than necessary levels of risk. So, we're looking at things like our gas consumption, just like a recreational diver. We're not so much focused about the NDL or no decompression limit, but we are looking at how much decompression we have to do for a given bottom time, and what gases we need to bring with us to accelerate the decompression on the shallower phases of the dive. So, we have to manage both the amount of gas we have, the amount of time that we can spend in the water based on boat limitations or operational limits, how much oxygen we're exposing ourselves to, which is a little more complex than a simple, nitrox diver that is looking at, okay, I'm going to use 1.4 for the bottom phase of the dive as my max to calculate my MOD and jump in the water. For us, it becomes a little more complex because we're going to be breathing higher partial pressures of oxygen than 1.4 at times during decompression, and our overall oxygen load will be higher. So, there are more variables that we're having to manage, but that's part of the fun. When you're planning a dive, you're looking at, okay, well, where am I going? How deep am I going to be? And what gas can I bring for the bottom? Okay, well, how much time can I spend? All right, well, now what gas should I bring for decompression? What's the best gas? I've spent hours and hours just running plans because it helps me stay diving even when I'm at home. So if we have, the wind blowing out of the east 25 miles an hour, I can still be at home on my couch playing with the planning software and figuring out dives.
When you're using planning software, and we use planning software a lot, the two main tools that we use for our when we're training students is the dive planners, so they can actually see how we're planning the dives, and the other thing is we use digital dive logs. So with the Shearwater computers, we can make dives, download those dives, then we look at the dives and analyze the dives and try and match up the dive plan to the actual execution, to the dive in the log. And our goal almost always is to become a better diver, hone our skills, become better and better and better at those basic fundamental skills, better at buoyancy and trim, better at dive planning, better at situational awareness, better at self-awareness, better at communication, and better at propulsion. And for us, it's kind of like, how do we find ways to get better and better? And Nicole was talking about, like, people with technical gear on a 25-foot dive. I've made plenty of 25-foot dives where I can always find something to work on. And the key, at least for me anyway, is, what do I want to do? What do I want to work on? What do I want to see? Is it a particular piece of equipment and an adjustment? Is it something I want to do? Is it a skill I want to practice? And all of that, I try and write it. I'll write it on a slate and I'll take it in the water with me. Because if I get in the water without something like that, with just a plan in my head, it's like a fish. The whole plan turns to crap. So.
Well, so you're talking about the dive planning and you're talking about the different gas mixes. So I kind of have a question about that. Is one, what is the gas that you guys are teaching? And, when it comes to doing the mixes, what kind of dive center are you looking for that and their system so that you're getting the fills that you need for maybe some of these technical dives you're talking about?
Alec?
I'll let you start with that one, John.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's any different than it is with recreational divers. You want to find a place that you feel comfortable in, and if you say, I want to do this side or the other thing, they go, yeah, we do that all the time, or that sounds interesting. Let's give that a try. If they're knowledgeable in what it is that you want to do, you're gonna develop a relationship, and you do the same in recreational diving. It's you come in, if you get a good feeling about a dive shop, that's your local dive shop. If you go in there and it is, you don't get a good feeling, you think that if it's not a good fit, you don't want to shop there.
Yeah, actually, but you bring up a good point. The shop doesn't necessarily have to be a technical diving shop to have technical divers working out of there. As long as they're able to produce the fills that you need. For most stuff in the 150 foot and shallower range, you're looking at nitrox. So that's very easy. It gets a little more complicated when you're going deeper and you want to add helium and you're using trimix for deeper dives. But it's certainly, as long as the shop can produce, they have oxygen and they have clean air, you can usually, even as a technical diver, just going in, kind of coach the staff through, put 2000 PSI of oxygen in and top it with your nitrox mix, and to make my decompression gas. So, just because a shop doesn't necessarily, a shop employee isn't necessarily a technical diver doesn't mean that they can't help technical divers get the stuff that they need. Like I said, trimix fills become a little bit more complicated. But I know here in South Florida, we've got a few options now. Both 4C, Boca, and Pompano are now banking trimix and making that a little bit easier for local tech divers. So, that is a big boon for us, especially teaching this and producing students that are out diving it. And it helps to build the community and make access easier to anybody that is looking to get into that type of dive.
Mike Shield asked a question about I don't know that it was a question, maybe it was just a statement. He was talking about multi-deco, and for recreational divers, sitting down with a dive planner and trying to plan recreational dives, it doesn't work. It's the difference between a sandwich and a photograph of a sandwich. Without decompression, the dive itself is just one dimension. So multi-deco is probably the best. It's made by the same guys who make V Planner, and we get there's a lot of contention within the technical diving community of what is the best decompression algorithm, and this, that, and the other thing. But mostly for technical diving, it should be, it's got to be fun. You gotta really get into it and enjoy all the elements of it. Like Alec was saying, just sitting down in front of the dive planner and working up some dives, you're thinking about how that's going to play. And
it's interesting because back in the day, guys used to try and hit depths, and they're just using compressed air, and these guys are walking around today and they've been bent how many times. So it's interesting to see how, it's all evolved. I mean, back in the day, nitrox was called the voodoo gas, and people are like, oh, you shouldn't use it. And that's basically what we're pushing to most divers these days. That actually is a good, alternative to use when diving. So, if you guys could just a little bit more explain like the gases that you're using in your stops and why you're using like one gas versus another during those stops.
Well, I think the deep air thing is an interesting topic, and it's certainly a very contentious one in the technical diving community. I see a few people are talking about it. It's TDI offers an 180 foot air, deep air certification called their extended range class. And it is basically the same class that as trimix. The only difference is that you're breathing air instead of trimix, and you're limited to 180 feet instead of 200. Certainly the community has kind of steered away from deep air diving because of the risks of narcosis and the increased gas density that you're breathing, which increases your work of breathing, which makes it less easy to do work at depth, and it makes you more susceptible to things like CO2 buildup, which I'm sure John will chime in about in a second. He loves CO2.
No, I love ranting about CO2.
Yeah, I love ranting about CO2. So we have wrecks out here like the Hydro Atlantic that's 165, 170 feet in the sand that people are regularly diving on air to 23% nitrox. Certainly is helium beneficial at those depths? Absolutely. Is there some benefit to getting experience doing dives in the 150 to 160 foot range on air, so you can feel the effects of the more dense gas and higher partial pressure of nitrogen? I would argue there is. Would I rather have a little helium on that dive and make myself a little bit clearer? Absolutely. But especially with the way that things are going with helium prices and the availability of helium, I think we're going to see the community kind of steering a little bit more towards not necessarily deep air in the sense that people talk about it from years ago when you're doing the Andrea Doria on air and even deeper. But in the 150, 160 foot range, I think you're going to see a lot more, air dives happening than trimix, just because it's going to become cost prohibitive and, resource prohibitive to be using a lot of helium for those dives, certainly at least on open circuit.
The major difference between people who are diving deeper air today and, when we were diving deep air 40 years ago is when we were diving deep on air on the Andrea Doria, it was air. From the time you left the surface till the time you got back on the boat. And the biggest disadvantage was not breathing air on the bottom phase of the dive. The biggest disadvantage was decompressing on air. And it's got to do with pressure differentials. So today, we're not decompressing on back gas, regardless of whether it's trimix or it's air or whatever it is. We don't want to decompress on air. We want to decompress on nitrox, because this gives us a huge advantage relative to decompression. All of our decompression dives are based on using specified decompression gases to optimize our decompression to make it as efficient as possible. So we're lessening the likelihood of running out of gas. We're lessening the likelihood of getting bent. We're lessening the likelihood of oxygen toxicity, and we're getting out of the water faster.
Awesome, guys. So another question that I have for you is, when we're talking about all these gases, obviously they have to go into cylinders. What are the different cylinders that we're using for technical diving? I know there's lots of different equipment that you need. So if you guys could highlight some of the stuff that you're teaching with and using for the classes. As far as equipment, one of the things, if you've got people if you've got somebody that knows they want to be getting into technical diving, even if they're just, earlier on in their recreational diving career, you get them started diving like a backplate and wing setup, something with, a standard harness and backplate. That's going to make their transition into technical diving a little bit easier, because they'll already be in basically the same gear configuration that they'll be in when they go into diving doubles. The only difference being the wing and the actual tanks on their back, and additional regulator. But the as far as getting used to where they're placing all of their equipment, their accessories like SMBs and reels and lights and all that fun stuff, they they can start building those habits early on, even before they're ready to go to technical diving. As far as tanks, John, we use LP85 for pretty much everything.
If you look at technical divers, they're using all of them. Lance wrote in here that he thinks that deep air is an important step, and I totally agree. I think it's foolish to think that there's a magic gas I'm going to breathe trimix, therefore I'm going to be smart. It just doesn't work like that. As a matter of fact, Alec and I were just talking earlier about a guy who was diving trimix and did something stupid, and it's like,
I don't think those were our exact words, but sure. The smart gas didn't make him smarter.
Yeah, the smart gas didn't make him smarter. But the thing is, I don't care who you are. You're not going to be a good decompression diver without being a really good 130-foot diver. And you're not going to be a good 130-foot diver until you're a really good 100-foot diver. And you're certainly not going to be a 200-foot or 300-foot diver without really having your stuff wired. And it's that road is long. It takes time, but it should be fun. It's not all about the destination. It's about the journey. And if that's not your mindset, if you're trying to, prove something or set some kind of, record or, you got to have fun with this stuff.
Yeah, and actually, that brings up a good point. With technical training, I think that a lot of people at least as recreational divers, they're used to this, what's the next class kind of mentality.
Yeah, sure.
You get your open water certification, and then you're pushed right into your advanced open water, advanced adventure, and then you're pushed right into rescue and specialties. In technical diving, it really, you can't rush it. You can't hurry. You have to take your time and really make it so that whatever dive level you're at, if you're a 130-foot recreational diver, those dives for you should be easy before you say, I want to go deeper and I want to start being in an overhead environment or having mandatory decompression. So
you also have to, you have to really make the dives. You have to lead the dive. It has to be your dive, and you're
absolutely
doing all things to make it happen. Going from class to class to class to class, it is you're missing something.
Well, and you could make the argument that you could go from advanced open water straight into like a specialty class. But if you go out and you get your decompression diver or decompression procedures and advanced nitrox certification, which gets you to 150 feet doing accelerated decompression, and then you say, okay, now what's next? It's like, that's not really the right mentality. You want to go out and put some mileage on the card and the certification you just got and become a really great 150-foot diver. And then say, okay, now I can move to 200 feet. Once those 150-foot dives are easy, then probably you're ready to move to 200 feet. I see that all the time with students wanting to, jump to the next step. And it's like, well, take the time. Enjoy the journey. Don't just focus on the next class.
Bill's asking the question about what would prompt a tech diver to change from open circuit to closed circuit, and that's, you get all kinds of people at all different levels of experience for all different kinds of reason making that decision, and it. Rebreathers are not for everybody.
No, and the transition from open circuit to closed circuit or to rebreather is, it's a very personal choice, and it depends on what your goals for the rebreather are. If you are a photographer and you want to do extended 60-foot dives where you're getting closer to animals, well, you probably don't need to go and do a decompression class before you're doing that.
Just go wreck dive and you'll be close to animals.
Yeah. But if your goal is to, be doing deep dives, I would argue you should get the open circuit training first, at least to the deco level, if not even to trimix, and then move to closed circuit, just because, if the rebreather fails, you're going to end up doing a bailout on open circuit, and you want to be comfortable with that. So, there isn't a right or wrong for everybody. It's really, and certainly rebreather diving is not something I would push on anyone or recommend for every single diver. You have to be committed to it and really want to go for it. Just the idea of saving the money on the trimix fill is probably not a great reason to go rebreather.
The basic rebreather training class is unit specific. So in other words, you don't take a rebreather class, you take an inspiration class, or a Revo class, or a Meg class specific to that unit, and it's like, it's a big investment. It's a big undertaking. You can't be can I say asshat? Yeah, you can't be an asshat on a rebreather, because it'll kill you. And if you are looking at that, you want to have as much information as you possibly can prior to jumping into it. And if you don't even understand decompression, I don't know how you could be in a position to actually, select a rebreather.
Yeah, well, it depends on what your goals are for the unit, but absolutely. If your goals for the rebreather are to do decompression and you don't understand decompression, you're going to be starting off, pretty far behind. And your entry level rebreather class is really teaching you how to dive a rebreather. It's not teaching you how to do decompression. It's not teaching you, the theory behind decompression. It's a lot of time and effort focused on just making sure you know how to dive a rebreather and understand the different failure modes and respond to them as necessary. So, there isn't one path, and this is actually true for all technical diving. There might be a structure of classes as far as progression, but every single person's path into technical diving is going to be a little bit different.
There's a bunch of things in the column, the comments column. Guys are asking about how much trimix fills cost, and certainly there are shops that charge for a trimix fill. But generally speaking, if you're putting trimix in your open circuit cylinders, you're essentially paying for the helium, and the helium is more of a cubic footage thing. So, where guys are kicking around $200 for a fill, I guess, what's the size of your tanks? What's the mix that you're actually putting in it, and that kind of thing. $200 would be a lot of helium. Yes, Alec?
Yeah. It depends on the dive. If you're doing a 200-foot dive and your helium level and your gas consumption total is lower, it's not going to be as expensive as a 300-foot dive where you need more helium and more gas. So, it very much depends. I'd say Lance kind of hit it on the head, at least in our market. $100 to $150 for a fill from empty is probably about right for a set of LP85s. So, it isn't cheap. And nobody's going to tell you it is.
No, but and not because of the cheap or expensive thing, but it's like, nitrogen narcosis is relatively speaking predictable, and it is not the big deal that it's been made out to be. And you can go on the internet, and there's guys are saying at 130 feet you're incapacitated, and so on and so forth. The big threat is CO2. We were never meant to work underwater. I spent more than 20 years diving in and around New York City, working on bridges, construction projects, nuclear power plants, cable jobs, all kinds of underwater construction work. However, I probably in 20 something years, I probably put fins on my feet 4 times. So the work that hard hat divers do, it's this kind of work. With free swimming scuba divers, you have the opportunity to jump in the water and swim like crazy using the big muscles of when you're doing a flutter kick, you're using every muscle from your abdomen all the way down to your ankles. that our bodies were never made to do. And that the problem with CO2 creates serious narcosis. And if divers, if you're on a deep dive, what you want to do is you want to conserve energy. You want to be very self-aware. You want to minimize your physical exertion, and certainly be aware of the density of the gas that you're breathing. A nice, steady, slow respiratory rate works good, even with a gas that's relatively dense. What you can't do is start working real hard, having to breathe faster on a dense gas, which creates greater work of breathing, and it's a spiral that you're going to have to stop and fix the problem. See, that wasn't too much of a rant, was it?
No, not yet.
So, we've talked about the gases and the mixes and everything. And someone asked a question. Do you guys know on record what is the deepest dive? Like, did they have a Guinness World Record deepest dive out there?
They did keep those records, but I think they got rid of them. And it's not Guinness. It's like
there is a world record for open circuit. I think it's just shy of 1,100 feet. It's like 1,080 something feet. It is the world record dive currently. Unfortunately, speaking of world records or deepest dive stuff, it's like, at least for me, seeking out the deepest dive is kind of a fool's errand. Since that record was set, and it was previously held by Nuno Gomez, right?
And
since Nuno's record was
an awesome guy, awesome diver, very accomplished. But that's his thing.
Raggy looked it up.
Oh, okay. Wait a second. What did Raggy?
1,091 feet.
Yeah.
But exactly like what Justin just said, the diving for a record is a silly goal. Several people have died since that record was set in an attempt to set the record, simply for the ability to say I've been deeper than you, this is something that you see amongst new technical divers all the time. They want to set new depth records. What's my deepest dive? What's your deepest dive? And they compare each other, to who's been deeper.
There is a world of difference.
Well, and also there's always going to be somebody deeper.
Yeah, between Nuno Gomes and a dentist from Oregon, it is not for the. It's a lifestyle. It is people that work at this professionally, that are successful with those guys, and people that think, it might be great. I'm going to do that like all the other Guinness World Book records. It's like, we're going to make the biggest pizza. Deep water will eat you up and spit you out. And the guys that do this, it isn't technical. It's very technical. Back 30, 40 years ago, when guys like Brett Gillum were diving deep on air, it was like 450 foot on air, and their workup for those dives and just touchdown dives. Their workup for those dives was literally like months, and it's a lot.
So obviously, we all kind of agree there that, going deep to just touch and go and come back up, it's not really fun. Nobody wants to spend the money or the time or the training to do that. So most of the time, a lot of the people are doing deeper dives because there might be some deeper wrecks. Mm-hmm. And I know that here in South Florida, we do have some great deeper wreck dives. So if you guys could, one, start with, how do you kind of get your your plan for diving a deeper wreck, and then also if you guys could give us some of the favorite ones that you guys dive on, and maybe some stories of those.
Sure.
You know, it is there's we don't have that many in South Florida, that many natural wrecks, but we have a lot of artificial reef wrecks, which are great for training, a lot of fun. Personally, I'd rather go out and bring up gold and gems and that kind of stuff because well, I like gold. But for the big dive, where you are going to bring up gold, where you are diving a wreck that nobody else has ever been on, where you are the first person to ever be there, you have to be ready. So that's the value in all these artificial reef wrecks. You know, they are in all kinds of different depths here in the Pompano Beach area. They're easily accessible, and as a training site, they're totally awesome. The Hydro Atlantic is a natural wreck. It's in like 175 feet of water, and man, what a fun wreck that is! And we have lots of divers visit that wreck every year, and you know, it is the thing about the Hydro is it's an older wreck. It was built in 1905, and you know, it's a big, heavy, riveted hull, government contract. It was an ocean-going dredge, and you know, it sitting upright and proud on the bottom. It's an awesome wreck.
Yeah, you know, I've had students come to me for decompression classes that specifically, you know, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to see the Hydro Atlantic. And then, you know, you're drawn into further classes like trimix or advanced trimix because you hear about the Lowrance or the Sucre that are sitting right around 200 feet. And you're like, oh, you know, I've been doing the Hydro, I've done the Miller Lite and all these wrecks around here in the 150-foot range. And now, you know, I feel like I'm ready to go deeper, and I keep seeing people's videos and photos from these deeper wrecks. And then, you know, when you become accomplished there, you say, oh, you know, everybody's diving the RBJ and the Chris Corey, which is, you know, kind of a, you know, it sits in like 265, 270 feet, depending on where you are. And it's actually two wrecks. So you've got, you know, one on top of the other, and you're able to swim underneath of the hull of one of the wrecks, you know, between the sand and the wreck itself. So, you know, that's a cool experience. Lance just point out the Sky Cliff, which is a wreck up out of the Boynton Inlet, which is totally awesome. You know, has more relief on it than any of the deep wrecks I think I've been on here with a, you know, giant superstructure. You know, there is in South Florida a multitude of wrecks, but the cool thing is that we also have them in a bunch of different depth ranges. We have everything from, you know, 60, 70 foot deep wrecks to 330 foot deep wrecks and a few deeper. But, you know, from a variety standpoint, you know, it's hard to get bored here.
Training, you know, from a training standpoint, you know, we can put divers on sites that are, you know, depth specific for what we're trying to do with the students. Somebody asked, like, you know, where do you start? Somebody in the comments asked that, but it's like that. If you're a recreational single tank aluminum 80 kind of diver, go take an intro class. Take an intro class where you don't have to bring all of your equipment to the class. Don't buy all your stuff and then go to the class and then find out the stuff that you bought is not the stuff that you really want to dive. But there is stuff that you do want, and then so you got to go out and you know, get something else that's actually going to work for you. most instructors that teach intro classes will provide you with equipment for the intro class, and it's only a couple of days. It's not a significant investment in time, and that's a great way to put doubles on your back. You get a little bit of pool time, and then you have a chance to get out in the open water and see if that's what you want to do. Me, I don't even own single tank stuff. The twin sets are far more comfortable in my mind. Am I wrong, Alec?
My back would argue against that, but just from carrying them to and from the boat. But no, absolutely. The being in a twin set or doubles is feels more balanced in the water, I think, than a single tank setup. It certainly lends itself well to a lot of different environments rather than just limiting itself like single tanks do. You brought up a good
link. You're saying there's a link between heavy tanks and your back bothering you?
I know it's weird. Like my chiropractor says, lift and twist, straight knees, bend at the back.
My guy says lift with your back, not your legs.
But you bring up a good point with the gear, especially getting into technical diving. One of the big barriers for people is, I need all this gear, and I don't know what to get. So taking an intro to tech class gives you the introduction to a lot of what you want. And it's hard to go into the dive shop and say, I want this, this, and this, if you've never been in it and you don't really have any frame of reference. So, a good intro class will give you some different options and expose you to a few different, setups and hopefully guide you along the way so you can make your own gear purchase, with some insight and some actual experience behind you rather than just guessing and then ending up with something you don't like later.
Artie Bluen wants to know if you need a Mark V dive knife. Yes, you do, Artie, and you need specifically the one that I lost in my garage, and you can't go diving until I find it. But
I thought Artie was offering to give everybody on the chat a free Mark V knife.
Oh, maybe I misspoke.
Yeah, no, I think Artie definitely wants to give everyone free knives.
He's kind of like a philanthropist diver.
He's really a giver.
Yeah, he's a giver.
So guys, if you had like a bucket list technical dive, what individually, John, what would yours be?
I can't think of any place that. Right now, I want to get back to the Dominican Republic. I have unfinished business there, but not this year. Last year, Alec and I went to Bikini, and we dove the World War II wrecks in Bikini from the atomic bomb tests. That was some of the best wreck diving I've ever seen. In one day, every day you'd wake up and say you want to dive the aircraft carrier, you want to dive the submarine, you want to dive the destroyer, you want to want to dive the battleship, you want to dive the Japanese, the Nagato, you want to dive the Saratoga. It was pretty impressive and very hard to beat.
What about you, Alec?
Like John said, last year in Bikini was absolutely out of this world. And I can't imagine a place in the world that's just better overall wreck diving and technical diving. That being said, last year we also made a trip to the Andrea Doria, and I recovered some artifacts and the experience of diving in the Northeast is a completely different animal compared to South Florida and certainly to Bikini. You're dealing with cold, dark, deep water with strong currents. You got all this extra gear on that is totally different than what you wear here. and the approach is just different. So, for me, my bucket list dive is just anything that's going to give me a new experience. I don't think I have one particular place or dive that I really want to do, but I'm always looking for new ways of doing things and seeing the ways that people are doing these types of deeper dives in different locations and different environments.
And sorry, go ahead.
Ingrid was asking where in the DR, up along the North Coast. Although I've also been on the Caribbean side as well, but I am really I'm invested there.
Yeah, tell them the book.
Rob Curson, who wrote Shadow Divers, who is a very good friend of mine, and he also wrote a book called Pirate Hunters about a pirate wreck that we found down in the Dominican Republic in Samana, and but the political climate changed, and it's not that we got kicked out, but our contracts to work there were not renewed. So we're hoping that that's going to change. We're going to be able to get back in there, because the working on colonial period wrecks is absolutely fascinating. And some of the guys asked about wreck diving and technical diving, and it's like, for me, I like having I got to have like a mission, a direction. So if I'm jumping in the water, what is it I'm going to do? And I love training divers. I love doing technical training and all that. But the colonial period wrecks, where Alec learned to dive, like in Bermuda, that stuff is it's totally different.
Yeah, and just because you mentioned the book, we actually at 4C sell both the books, Shadow Divers and Pirate Hunters. And if you're lucky enough to come into the 4C Boca store, you might get John to sign it for you, because he's usually there.
Listen, you know what? The dive community has been very good to me. I'm always flattered when somebody asks me to personalize their book. I've been incredibly fortunate to have Rob Curson as a friend, and also to work on projects with him. So yeah, go in there, buy a book, and it'd be my pleasure to personalize it for you.
So I have a question, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up. Just you guys are talking about destinations. So when it comes to using technical diving gear and traveling, can you guys give some insight on, how do you pack and how do you pick dive centers that have these kind of dives for you? What's the
darts? We use darts.
Certainly as technical divers and traveling, there is some pre-planning involved. You may need to bring your own equipment. If you want to dive doubles in the Caribbean, you might need to bring a manifold and bands with you, and they can double up their own aluminum 80s that they have, on site. Some places will have, cylinders. Some places will have the ability to fill high oxygen, nitrox.
Just getting our stuff together for the Doria, leaving from Montauk.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what did we do for the Doria? We brought all of our stuff with us. We just had a car full of tanks. And,
actually, an RV the first time.
An RV full of tanks the first time. So you certainly have to plan ahead and not assume that you're going to show up in at a dive shop in Costa Rica and get doubles and rich nitrox fills, or even have access to the sites that to deeper sites. But there are tons of places around the world that offer technical diving to travelers and are able to support rebreathers and open circuit technical divers.
Do you guys know of any dive clubs that are for technical diving, or is it kind of more you meet people in your classes and you start diving together?
It's like over the last few years, we've kind of built a pretty big group, at least of the divers that local divers we've trained. And, there certainly are a few different kind of groups that get together and organize boats and organize trips and things. There is a Facebook group for South Florida Tech Divers. So there's certainly lots of opportunities. But the best place to start is get into a class so you get with the right people and you get the training, so you don't show up to those kinds of groups and not know what you're doing.
Like what? Like if they get in with the wrong people, are they going to wake up in the park with in their underwear or something?
You sound like you're speaking from experience.
No.
And just one more. I don't know if it's more of a comment or a question, but here in South Florida, you guys talked about some of the cool wrecks that we have, like getting on the charter boats. Like, how often are they running these trips? Do you guys have any insight on booking boats down here? How easy is it to get a boat to do a tech trip for you guys?
If you're capable of doing the dives, you kind of know. And that's kind of intentional. They don't want the divers overcommitting on dives that aren't appropriate for their skill or certification levels. Any place you go for technical dives, they kind of want to know you a little bit, and certainly through training, as technical diving is really a lot about networking.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a solid number of boats that are running trips. Certainly, there's more like 6-pack boats that'll run, charters for smaller groups out to the deeper sites, and those are kind of like organized by the people that are on it. But there are big operators here. Scuba Time runs charters. South Florida Diving Headquarters is where we dive a lot, and we were on the Hydro Atlantic yesterday with a class. And we're going back Tuesday, and I was on the Captain Dan this morning, and we're going to the Lady Luck tomorrow. So you can do technical dives on even some of the shallower wrecks as well. So it's not just limited access to the deeper sites. Entry-level tech divers can jump on something like the Lady Luck or the Captain Dan and do an extended duration dive while the recreational divers are doing their dive. They just have to organize it and make sure that the boat knows about it and is comfortable with the idea.
You also get operations like South Florida, and I'm sure Scuba Time does it as well. And the 6-pack operators, if you say I'm coming to Florida and I want to dive over these days, I want to dive this particular wreck, they'll put it on their schedule.
Yeah.
So long as they're comfortable with you making the dive. If obviously nobody wants to see somebody get themselves in trouble, and I don't want to say, we look out for each other.
Yeah, and obviously, you can call any of the 4C dive shops, talk to the people that work in the shop. A lot of them are technical trained, so they can give you any answers that you have, answer any questions about training, fills, and boat schedules, and we can get you guys out there technical diving. So thank you, Alec and John, for a great chat. We appreciate it. But before we go, we do have something. We have a drawing, and I realized that I misspoke. I thought I was giving away a $50 gift card today, right? But I was supposed to give away, John, remember I asked you to give away one of the Shadow Divers books signed by you? So I'm going to do 2, not 1. I'm going to do 2 drawings since I already promised a $50 gift card. So I grabbed everyone's registration from the Eventbrite, and I'm going to bring that into here. So I'm gonna hide you guys for a second. Just stay here. Don't click out.
But hey, Socrates. For IND, I was like trimix diver number 61 or something like that. But Tom's shop in Westfield was an awesome place. And I love those guys.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna hide you really quick, John. Hold on. Okay, guys. So here is the 4C the 4C website, and there's our Tech Month information. If you want any information about what we're doing for the month, it's there. And let's go over to this random name picker. So there's everyone's emails, and let's go ahead. And the winner is, for the $50 gift card, Cheryl Black. Cheryl Black, you are our winner. If you're listening, make sure you say woohoo in the comment section. All right, and I told you we're going to do a second drawing. So who's going to get the Shadow Divers booked autograph by John Chatterton? And Doug, oh boy, Hutwagger. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name, but Doug, if you're listening, go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you're listening. All right, let me bring the guys back in. There they are. All right, guys. So again,
Were you holding your breath, Alec?
Oh, you weren't?
No, I was.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, guys, you have been excellent tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time to give us some information about tech diving and what you guys are doing and the cool wrecks that we have here. So I think we've answered almost everyone's questions. If we haven't, we'll go back through and answer them for you. And again, you can always call one of the 4C dive shops and take a class with either John or Alec. We'd love to see you guys out there, post photos, and tag 4C. All right, guys, have a great evening. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.